That's right. It's the Jimmy Doane Show.
You guess, were we on?
Well, maybe.
Is the green light on?
The green light's on.
Okay, good.
And there we are. So, should probably just take out that 5-second delay. Hey, Gene!
always right on time.
Good to see you, sir. So, this is the Jimmy Doane Show. It's 4 o'clock on Sunday. We do this twice a week, 4 o'clock Wednesdays and Sundays, as you can see. Today is the 14th of April, 2019. This is like our 71st show, I think, in this series.
Right.
We have several series.
Several series, that's right.
So, thanks for joining us. I'll put a time-stamped copy up on YouTube right after this, or about an hour after it. You can find us in audio format on
everywhere.
iTunes and Spotify. Yeah, exactly, everywhere. So, what's happening?
Oh, interesting. You should mention that. I was listening to Scott Adams. I listen to him pretty religiously. He comes on, there's a Periscope.
Right.
Every morning.
Yeah, it's better if you go over to his YouTube and then you can do them on fast forward.
Yeah, but still, it's one of those things I sometimes like to listen to him. And he started off saying, well, there's no news today. And this was a great thing for...
That's your opening. He's stealing your lines.
I guess. But what I was thinking was, as I was going through the show notes, and then finding some new show notes, there's news everywhere. I mean, we're loaded with news.
Hey,
I mean, and since we were on Wednesday, I mean, I only have 8 pages here.
Since last we left out here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it could have done anything.
Well, boil it down to the most important.
Well, I will, but let me just tell you one thing. I thought we were going to have like nobody watching because of the Masters. However, for those of you Tiger won since, the first time in 14 years or something. Yeah. But he got the green jacket again.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, golf's not one of those things you really...
He's 43 years old or something.
Yeah, the past champions were like 65. I mean, the Arnold Palmers and the...
No, not when they were 60. No, Tiger first won this when he was like 8.
12, I know. But the thing is I know he changed his whole swing and all that stuff, but
So the other thing is,
can you imagine being Tiger Woods? You've won like every championship ever, and somebody's like, "Oh no, you're swinging all wrong."
Right. Have coaches for all that stuff.
Yeah, but
same thing with pitchers.
Yeah, but still, I don't know what they could tell him that.
Well, anyway, he won. So all those people that were watching the whatever it was now can come out of the show. And Game of Thrones doesn't start until later tonight.
Game of Thrones.
Yep, Game of Thrones is going to be. They expect it'll be the biggest audience ever. Okay, this is great. So it'll be the biggest audience ever.
Well, where
are my lips?
I don't know. Your lips are not there. So.
Okay. Well, anyway, those I see your eyes are there.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So anyway, but that comes on later tonight. They expect it to be, mind-boggling because it's been a couple of years since.
I know. God, the biggest hiatus ever.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but when I think about Star Wars, it was 3 years between each.
Those are movies. This is a TV show.
I understand. Well,
it's like we'll get back to you in a couple of years.
Okay. Well, I can't think of any other.
Nobody's ever put off people for that long.
No, I don't.
Now, in their defense, I read about the choreography for the extras in the upcoming battle.
Okay.
Something like 69 days straight in freezing conditions, 12, 14-hour days. It was ridiculous.
Brutal.
Yeah, they went all out for this production. So I say it's a TV show, but I'll bet you it cost
a fortune.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Over 10, maybe.
It's funny because I've never seen the first one. I've seen none of it.
Oh, you haven't?
None. Zero. I have.
It's pretty good. I got somebody tried to force me to binge it, and so I did. But I did it out of order, so now I'm kind of screwed up in it all. But it's a little slow. It's a little bloody, but it's pretty good overall. And some of the acting is fantastic. Some of the cinematography is fantastic.
So it's as good as West Wing?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, on some level, it is. I mean, you've got, like I said, some of the situations, acting, characters, and writing are top notch.
Okay.
It's a little gory for me. You try to binge some of this and you'll end up with some nightmares, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you should say that because I in a way, I was. We had my niece was up here for a couple of days this last week, and she wanted to watch the SVU, you know, what do they call it? You know, SVU.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're still running. I think it's like 15 seasons or something, but it's pretty gory. And I mean,
not like this.
No, not like this. Okay, that's fine. So anyway, it begins this 6-episode march to the end. And what was the other thing that I had brought about the movies? And I forget. Okay. The next movie, of course. The trailer was out for the next
Star Wars movie,
and I looked at the trailer and I thought, I don't get it. You know, but they said, you know, it
looked kind of crappy to me.
I thought it was a little spotty.
Disney takes over.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when you read the reviews or the comments. It's about split 50-50. I mean, you know, there's some people that said this sucks. You know, now that Disney's got it, it's horrible. Blah blah blah. And other people say no, can't wait, whatever. And I had one guy that said if this one sucks, something like the last one or whatever.
Right.
You know, I'm never watching another one. I wrote it back and said, yes, you will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad it is. You'll see the next one.
Yeah, well, because the more this one sucks, the more that they would change it up and try to go back to something. I mean, they could kill the franchise. I mean, this is one of those things where it's this awesomely huge franchise.
So we have to wait till they have. And here's the trailer, and it's like 9 months until Christmas when it comes out. So who knows? All right, on to news. News everywhere, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Julian Assange. We talked about that. Did we talk about this before? He was dragged out.
Yeah. No, we haven't mentioned that yet.
Okay. Well, he was the other day. He was literally dragged out. They saw he had the little video of him, and he looks pretty old and decrepit. I mean, in a way, it's all white. Everything's all white and beard and everything.
Yeah.
And they literally dragged him out and shoved him in a van, and almost immediately the United States came up and said the United States formally charged him with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion for agreeing to break a password to a classified U.S. government computer. But I mean, what he was arrested for was failing to surrender to the court.
So that's how you know it's all BS.
I know.
Well, and not only that, but you know what he was failing to surrender for was the warrant that was issued for him on the literally trumped up rape charges that were brought.
I thought they had given those up. I thought
they did.
Yeah, right.
But they issued a warrant during the course of it all, which he failed to appear for. So this is their excuse, and it's literally this is a legal excuse.
Okay.
This is
well, it was obvious that the new guy in Ecuador, the new premier, whatever is the president of Ecuador, or of it is Ecuador, right? Marina Western. Yeah, Ecuador, right. You know, basically kicked him out.
Yeah, well, they revoked his diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity. And I love that. You remember that from, what was it?
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. Diplomatic immunity. No, anyway, they are right, not anymore. So they revoked it, and then immediately the Brit soldiers ran in there. He apparently was trying to make a run for his little hovel in there. Anyway, they dragged him out literally, and then immediately the United States says we want him, and it's interesting to see people. And I don't know if I mentioned about this, but Ben Shapiro is another one that I watch quite a bit.
Yeah.
He thinks he should be lynched, and I'm saying, are you crazy? I mean, and he talked about people switching back and forth. Yes, he's a hero. No, he's not. From day one, you and I were on the same page on this.
Yeah.
Day one, we said this is fabulous.
Yeah, look.
It's about time you came out with somebody. Why are you hiding all this stuff? And the thing about it that is so amazing to me is that they say, well, these revelations put our people in harm's way.
Right.
And I'm going like, wait a minute. They are dressed up like the soldiers in Star Wars. They're in harm's way.
Well, yeah, but it does put them worse in harm's way.
No,
Yeah,
I want to
it
know.
does.
Okay, what happened? How many were dead because of what he released?
Well, we don't know, but look, I'm not going to argue against you on that. It's
They shouldn't have been there.
Assange's fault. Well, or how about once you find out about the leaked information, get him out of there.
Right.
It's not Assange's responsibility.
No.
I mean, people can say, here's the way you have to remember is that for millennia or for centuries, the job of the press is to expose the leaders, the rulers. It's to expose the people in power. Okay, that's That was always the job of the press. The freedom of the press, the whole concept is we're not going to prevent people from reporting on what the government is doing.
Right.
Because we want the people to know what the heck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's obviously some line of secrecy, classified information, but it's not up to the press to not violate that. If they get the information, then they turn it out. And he got the information from Bradley Manning. So that Assange was fulfilling the role of a modern day journalist. Mm-hmm. He revealed the information. So the Pentagon people, if they thought that put people in jail, it's their job to get them out of there after that. And I hear your argument, but the harm that's potentially caused by putting those people in danger is outweighed by the benefit of us being able to know what our government is doing.
Totally.
Especially on such a big, gigantic, secretive level. I mean, this was the collateral damage revelation. This is
right.
Okay, now we see what's going on. We're bombing weddings and droning people, U.S. citizens or whatever, and so it's important for us to know that stuff. And it's important enough for us to risk American lives who are already in the field being risked anyway.
I mean,
that's why they're being risked. It's for the same cause,
right?
Which is liberty, freedom, justice for all. That kind of stuff.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep us, home of the free, land of the free.
It sucks sometimes, but I'm on board with you, man. I think Julian fulfilled the role. I can't believe Michael Malice had the best tweet of the week, which was he said. This guy reported stuff that the government, the people in power didn't want released. Does that sound like a journalist to you?
Yeah.
And of course, yes.
Yes, it does.
It sounds exactly like a journalist.
It is. What's fascinating about that, of course, is the fact that it's released. When you realize that what government does, it's a crescendo. In the beginning, we're transparent or something, or the government's small or something. But now it's like when in doubt, classified. I mean, that's one of the things.
Well, right. Well, we've seen there's all kinds of look. If anybody in this country has any doubt that the federal government could disappear somebody in your family and you have no legal recourse, and it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
I think you're not understanding how deep it all goes, because I think that could easily happen. And so this is one little tiny pushback in the other direction.
Yeah.
And another one was, of course, Snowden. I mean, to me, Snowden is an absolute hero because he actually took the time to redact all the sensitive information.
Right.
But in Assange's defense, this is about transparency, and it bolsters his credibility to release everything and just let the people sort it out.
Right.
And so I'm behind you on this. I think it's a dark day for journalism to have Assange arrested like that.
It really is, because now
it will effectively kill him. I mean, they'll put him in life in prison, or
it'll be interesting to see if there is enough of a citizen uproar, or are the neocon people who really want him dead, so dead. I mean, for this kind of thing, putting lives in, who you're sitting over there in a stormtrooper outfit, bulletproof everything, and they're going to put you more in harm's way.
Well, look, you have to. That is a legitimate argument. They are more in harm's way if their positions are given up, or their security clearances are given up, or something like that. Now, look. I'm sure it's way overblown from their perspective, because they would claim everything. That's what you would do. You'd say, oh my God, it put hundreds of thousands of people in jeopardy. No, it probably put 10 people in jeopardy, or 100 or something. And not any much greater jeopardy either. And again, once you know about it, you get the people out of there, you change security codes, you swap people out, you do what you're supposed to do. You do military stuff. Right. And so that's what they should do. But,
okay. All right. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay.
Democrats give Trump. This is what Democrats give Trump 10 days to hand over the tax returns. Or what? Neil gave the government until 5 o'clock on April 23rd to hand over the tax records. Please know that if you fail to comply, your failure will be interpreted as a denial of my request. Ooh, boy, that's bad. And so the request looks to trigger a protracted legal showdown.
Whoa. Sorry, I had one more thing to say about the Julian Assange things, and that is, do you know who Q is?
No. I mean, I've heard of this. Isn't that guy Corsich or whatever his name is? Or
I don't know. All I know is that if you Google Q Manifesto online, it'll come up with a thing that looks a lot like Anonymous or WikiLeaks. Right. And so they can do whatever they want to Assange. There's going to be more groups, more people, more information coming out that same way. all the time.
Okay.
So sorry.
Because I saw some of that, and it looked a
One
little.
more thing on top.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, it looked a little funny to me because one of the things, this guy Corsi was the one that was always talking about Q.
Okay.
And I I listened to a couple of minutes. So I said, well, maybe not. I don't know.
I mean,
and of course the other thing, one of the problems you have is when you guy who's been banned. What's his name? The guy who was raving about everything, conspiracy theories and everything, who's banned.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, right? But every once in a while he had something right. I mean,
Yeah.
And so, but you couldn't tell. Unfortunately, separating the wheat from the chaff is a little short.
Yeah, well,
and he's being sued by the Sandy Hook.
Well, yeah, we talked about that, but yeah, better to have those guys out there spewing 90% BS and 10% truth than not getting the 10%.
And there's an editorial in today's Gainesville Sun about some of that stuff that they just don't get it. Speaking of Gainesville, real quick, top news today. A guy down up the road here was killed by his pet bird.
Oh yeah,
it's a cassowary.
Yeah,
a cassowary is like an emu bird, only with raptor toes or something. And they're like 4-inch toes that are spikes, and that's what it does to ward off its predators. And so the owner was in there, about my age, mid-70s, whatever, and fell down, and apparently the bird tromped over there. The bird goes like 30 miles an hour, tromped over there and sliced him open, and by the time they got to him or got him to the hospital, he was dead. So, but he's got a permitted sanctuary for exotic animals, exotic birds or whatever, and of course the Florida Wildlife Commission's in all of who knows what, but still, you keep, if you're going to keep, as we have up the road here, we've got a tiger lion sanctuary. You go into those cages. That's your, they may hug you for a moment, but they're still wild animals. Same thing with this cassowary. It's funny because Ms. Jimmy said, "What? I've never heard of that." But it's from South Pacific someplace, and it's native. I don't know if they're in. Yeah, I think he breeds.
Looks kind of like a peacock.
Well, wait, except got a little horn on his head, and then it's all color face, but it's black. I don't think he peacocks his tail out. Or
No.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Well, wait, you were on another.
I said just about what was they've given him 10 days to give you the tax returns,
right? And
then I'm going and of course the charge will be denial of my request. Okay, well, when it says no, suddenly that's a problem. And then what do? I guess you go to court.
Well, then you call up the newspaper and you publish an article that says Trump is resisting Congress or something, or breaking the law by not complying with Congress, or could be held in contempt or something.
One of the things that's interesting is
flailing around at this point.
Apparently, Congress, which has never used this, does through some backdoor way have a way to look at tax returns.
Well, we talked about this last time on the show. We said, what they're using is their oversight powers. Well, okay, so they're going to choose just Trump's tax returns to review
5 years worth.
Right, to review the oversight power. No, it's a hit. It's a political hit. That's why they're going to have to go through the courts to get a hold of his tax returns. You can't just walk in there and get them if you're somebody from Congress. And so
and of course, one of the things you have to realize is if these are billionaires' tax returns and they're like this thick, and you're going to have some wag from the whatever committee to leaf through this and understand it?
Well, no. I would imagine you would have to hire forensic accountants, but let's.
What are they doing looking at it? Of course, that's another thing. Have they been cleared?
They are cleared by virtue of being hired. That's the way that goes. But the thing is we know these tax returns have already been reviewed by experts.
Right.
When they were filed.
Right.
So what do they think they're going to find that the IRS, their supposition or their implication is that there's something horrible in the taxes that the IRS experts either found and completely ignored or didn't find.
Or covered it up.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
or covered up and didn't find. So which of those categories is it? I mean, if they didn't find the stuff, how do they hope to find it? If they did find it and they, like you said, they covered it up, really? Like that's what you're going with? The IRS is now, are they Russian IRS agents? I mean, what? I mean, this is, it's just more fishing. I said it's flailing. This is, they are stunned at the lack of charges that were, I have friends that were saying they were convinced that Trump and his people were already in negotiations to appoint Pence as the president and to resign quietly out of office. And so here we are, mid-April, not going to happen. And what do they got? They got to do something for 18 months.
So tomorrow everybody has to file. Tomorrow's tax day.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah.
So better file. Tell Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So former secretary, I'm going to get to, yeah, here we are. There is.
Well, the big story of the week, which I think goes right along with this about Trump, is the immigration one.
Yes.
Is he going to dump the?
Well, see, dump is a pejorative word.
Who cares what word you use?
Well, I mean, the voice is going to release them into, the burden. Obviously, there's problems at the border. They are overflowing. There's places they can't hold. So here we've got some people that say, bring them on.
Sanctuary.
Please come to San Francisco. Please, and Trump says, okay.
Right.
This is good. We can relieve the pressure on the border, and we'll just bus them on up there or whatever it is, and you can have them.
Everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy.
I agree. I don't understand. I think Nancy totally blew it on this one in terms of their.
This is what gives hypocrisy a bad name.
I know. It really does.
It really
because
does.
Let me. My honest position on this is I would be happy for them to bust a lot of those people right here. Because I have no problem with those people. That is to say, I am firmly convinced that none of them are terrorists. They're going to be fine. They're going to assimilate, or their kids will. They're going to work. They're going to do fine. Okay. Now, I'm also for, as we talked about, I think there should be a border wall or security. You have to have security. The country has to control the flow in and out. Even though I would like it to be very open, the country has to be in control of that flow. But I can't see an argument from the left on why you would not want those people in your district. I mean, personally, why wouldn't you just welcome them in here? Why wouldn't you take them and rub it in Trump's face? Why wouldn't you say, bring them on, put them on the buses, let's go?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if I've got it here. Oh, here it is.
She must really not believe that they're going to be valuable in any way. She must really believe that they're just going to be dragged down.
This is the Trump derangement syndrome. It doesn't matter what he does. She has to come up. She has to come up and take the opposite. Whoops. Nancy Pelosi's hypocrisy on sending immigrants to sanctuaries. Amid word that the administration is considering this move, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said, "The extent of this administration's cynicism and cruelty, cannot be overstated. Using human beings as pawns in their warped game to perpetuate fear and demonize immigrants is despicable and in some cases criminal." Give me a break.
I mean, that is the biggest flail. What he did was criminal. He's awful. He's terrible. He's juvenile.
No, I mean, look at the words here. Cynicism, cruelty, cannot be overstated, pawns, warped game, fear, demonize, despicable, and in some cases, criminal.
Look, that's just straight talk. That's just straight. There's nothing colorful about that. That's not.
Well, one of the guys says, "Why don't you? I'm sorry. Why don't you send these illegal immigrants to a place where the politicians want them, where they would be safe? If I were illegal, I'd want to go to a sanctuary city. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Excuse me. I'm thumbing up. I'm going up there right.
I don't see how. To me, I don't. I would continue if I were him to rub this one in their face as long as possible.
I agree. So okay, let's see. The next big thing, of course, is the Mueller report, which may come out this week. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined other Democrats in their demands for the full Mueller report to be released to Congress and the public. Now, what I like about this is, of course, they're not saying they want it released to the public, but they consider Congress to be the public, is what it boils down to.
Right, them. They're the ones.
They're the ones that are the gatekeepers or whatever.
Well,
we deserve to see.
As long as they know, it doesn't matter who else knows.
Well, they don't. They certainly. They're certainly not going to publish it, the full report on the front page of the New York Times, like they did with the Pentagon Papers.
Well, like I said, they should be careful what they wish for.
Right.
But as you just pointed out, they're going to claim, it was released when it gets released to them.
Right.
because
and as far as they're concerned, they're the public.
Right.
Let's see. What she says is, what for residents should not be shared publicly, it should be shared with the Congress. She said. One of the things that and of course, as far as she's concerned, once it should be shared with the public, but once it's shared, let's just say with Congress, that's close enough to the public. One of the things I thought was interesting, again, one of the things I did as a very young lawyer was work in the impeachment staff of the House Judiciary Committee in 1974. This is Hillary, investigating Richard Nixon. Now, anybody that knows anything about Hillary knows she was fired. I mean, they could not stand her. She screwed up. She was a lawyer. And even in Congress, they said, "Get out! What are you doing? You're screwing things up." I mean, they let her go, and for her to claim that as some kind of medal, this was, I won't say it was a scandal, but she was young. You know, back then she was a young person, but she had no clue what she was doing. So to use that as a badge of honor, if you go look at it, you'll find out no, this is not it at all. Okay. Okay. Now, the next thing that's going on. So we talked about we talked about the Star Wars celebration, and they said the title's going to be The Rise of Skywalker, and they had all the people. Anthony Daniels was there. C-3PO. How old is he these days? I wonder.
I don't know.
I mean, he was in 1977. So, okay, interesting. All right. Next item that I've got here is U.S. Senator Warner eyes social media bills for hate speech.
Warren, you mean?
U.S. Senator Warner.
Oh, okay.
I think he's Mark Warner. I think he's from Virginia.
Okay, I didn't know if you meant Elizabeth.
No. Elizabeth's got some other news in here.
Okay.
Warner, Senator Warner. And so U.S. Senator Mark Warner, who co-sponsored legislation this week to ban deceptive practices by social media companies, said on Thursday he was eyeing additional bills aimed at limiting hate speech and allowing users to move their data across platforms. Now, of course, the thing is, now Congress is going to decide what's hate speech. That's what a bill is all about in Congress. We're going to limit hate speech on social media platforms. So we're basically going to, and of course Mark Zuckerberg has said, well, okay, let him do it. You know, that way it takes it off my back. And so Congress, you know, what he wants.
Well, he wants him to limit his competition.
Right. Oh, yeah, no question. So anyway, additional legislation could focus on hate speech, which gives social media users the ability to easily take their data to another site, and transparency on who or what is on the other side of the internet conversation. Let's see, he said they got a Republican to sign on to this. Bar online platforms like Facebook and Alphabet's Inc., Google, from misleading people into giving personal data for companies. Now, one of the things that's interesting, as you know, very often they'll have I won't call it clickbait, but if you want to do something, they have to know something about you. You know, at least we want to know if we're going to send you mail, put your email address in here, and a lot of other stuff will ask some additional. They know a lot about you. We know that, so they want to find some way to limit that. It turns out that for anybody who cares, I believe it's possible to extricate yourself from Facebook, but it ain't easy. I believe that there is a tutorial on what all the things you must do to get rid of really get off of it. So I guess. So anyway, now what they're going to do?
Well, we're seeing the direction that they're going over in China.
Yes.
So they're really apparently going bananas with that social credit score stuff and facial recognition software and.
But you know, of course, well, you say that China is homogeneous, but they're not really. I mean, there's like 1 million different tribes in China. But well, maybe it is. Okay, forget what I just said. Rewind. It would also ban online platforms of more than 100 million monthly active users. So they're going to draw the bar at 100 million. So if you have 50 million active users, apparently, you're exempt. That's this. But I mean, this is one of the things. This is the old. Be careful, not be careful what you wish for, but the great law of unintended consequences. So, this has to do, for instance, when they had laws, employment laws, or OSHA, or whatever. A lot of the laws have been passed against for business protection. They'll have a cutoff: 10 employees for this one, 50 employees for this one. Small company, fewer than 200, whatever it is. There's a cutoff, and of course, what you find then is occasionally you'll find that these companies will split into two in order to not be subject to regulations.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this is they're just answering the call that you hear all the time. It's a public utility. If they deplatform you, there's no other options except for the other three. And I mean, it's just insanity. But they're going to get in on it, I'm sure. I'm shocked that they have allowed the internet to grow to the extent that it has without them getting in. And I guess they finally did the tax thing on Amazon.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm shocked they've left it alone as long as they have, and I don't expect them to keep leaving it alone, but I think it'll just drag things down and make it worse. And then we'll see things like there'll be some law that says you can't use X kind of speech, and the government will be deplatforming people off of those places. That's what'll happen.
Yeah.
There'll be some auxiliary, a badge will pop up on your screen and say you've been flagged. And
it's funny because it already does.
Well,
of course, it's malware.
Right.
It pops up there.
Right.
I love it when the malware comes up there and says, Apple has determined that you've got this horrible virus. Would you like to do something about it?
Right.
Now, okay, and that's the only thing you've got. You have to shut your computer off.
Yeah.
In order to get rid of it. Well, speaking of internet, Austria said Wednesday it was considering a law to make mandatory for internet platforms to register their users and deprive those behind hate posts of anonymity. So unfortunately, there have been an increasing number of clear violations, denigrations, and humiliations online in the past. That's why we need a framework for more responsibility online, said the Chancellor. And in the new law would take effect in 2020 would make it mandatory for platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to register their users. And of course, this is the guy who's in charge of EU affairs, art, culture, and media. It would be up to the platforms themselves to decide the form of registration, but the main thing is the authorities would be able to access these registration and know who these people are, so you would not be anonymous anymore.
Yeah.
So if there's suspicion, that's when they would pop
Well,
in.
it's even worse than that. This is adults acting like kids. This is, from my perspective, they're stepping in and trying to micromanage people. I mean, this is speech and stuff.
Well,
Get over it. Get over it.
When the government is involved, remember, it's a gun.
I know.
There's a gun involved.
And this is a gun against speech is what this comes down to.
Right.
And so these guys will butt their big noses in and
well, none of these, no other countries have a First Amendment like we do.
I know.
Ours has been kind of trashed a little bit, but still, in other countries, boy, they can, they can flat arrest you for speech.
I know. And this is just going to dampen that down even further.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And this reminds me of another issue that I see all the time these days is these politicians calling one another names. Like, a whole bunch of people are, they'll call Trump juvenile or gross or something.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, those names, that is like, that in and of itself is a juvenile thing. First of all, you don't call people names. If you want to attack somebody's actions, go ahead.
Oh, well, Trump, of course, is famous for calling people names.
Well, and that's one of the reasons they don't
Pencil
like
neck.
it. Right. and we decried that as juvenile. That's ridiculous stuff. And it has no effect, no implication on policy.
Not on policy, but it certainly, as Scott Adams said, it was a persuasion technique that was genius.
Well, again, there's different levels to that, and I'm not going to... He can do whatever they want on that, and that's obviously what they're trying to do.
Right.
They're trying to say, you're ugly or whatever. And to me, though, every time I hear somebody use those types of attacks, it just degrades them into children in my mind. It's like, look, if
it makes the attack not so strong.
Right. Well, it's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
It's like calling him Orange, like
Orange Man.
Right.
They already called him.
Okay, so what? Like, that doesn't have any impact on any policy. It's not persuasive in any way, except it's just designed to rile me up or rile up other
Well, it's
people.
all emotional.
That's what I mean.
And the simple fact is...
It's not an intellectual argument.
No, and what you find is, and this is... Anybody that knows anything about different kinds of persuasion, 99 times out of 100, it's emotional.
Oh, yeah.
There's almost no logic involved.
Well,
People don't listen to logic. You can prove with Aristotelian precision and I've done this, and in front of the council down here, and they look at you and say, "Okay, well, your time's expired."
It's the same way with legal arguments.
Is that right?
Absolutely. When you do a closing argument, you better have the emotion on your side. That's why the Ally McBeal's closings are so powerful.
Oh my God, they were great.
write them from the perspective of the emotion and persuasion, that type of way.
Oh my God.
They're not thinking about the logic and the law that's involved, because you don't have to.
No.
At some level. But you do have to at some level if you're trying to convince thinking people.
I need to see Ally McBeal being streamed again. That was because I love the closing.
Oh no!
The closing.
This show brought to you by Ally McBeal.
No, I'm telling you. Well, there's the famous writer. I forget exactly who it is, but he writes some of those.
Yeah.
But I mean, the famous one, of course, is when he put the glue on the.
Yeah. We talked about that.
Oh my
a million times.
No, but it's so funny. It's just amazing. God.
Well, still, all right. So anyway,
okay. So now we've done with Austria. Now to move to Australia.
okay.
A poll shows 50% Australians support shifting all sales of new cars to electric vehicles by 2025. Transition to electric vehicles can cut carbon emissions has dominated climate policy in the debate in the Australian election campaign. Now, one of the things that I find interesting about this is by 2025, we're talking about for roughly 5 years from now, 5.5 years from now, all electric cars. Now, I don't know if you know this, but if you've ever seen the transit from Western to Eastern Australia, and they have the three-tier trucks. Here in the States, some places we have the two, where the truck hauls 2 semis or whatever.
Okay.
And they have 3 down there, and these are traversing thousands of miles. Okay, show me the electric car again that's going to make that trip. I mean, and even if you have the infrastructure, even if you had a massive charging stations, which would be unbelievably how expensive. Massive charging stations every 200 miles, 150 miles, whatever it is. I mean, here, of course, we have gas charging stations for gas every 50 feet. So, even if you go down the non-access highway, it's about, you might have 30 miles to go tops before you get to fill up. And then go another 400 miles.
Well, and it still takes a half an hour to charge those.
Right, I was going to say, forget the fact, that I don't care what you end up with, but this, boy, talk about pie in the sky. I mean, and for Australia of all places, now I could almost understand if you wanted electric cars in Paris, for instance. Right. Okay, I can understand.
The Netherlands.
Yeah, the Netherlands, right. Okay, I can understand in Luxembourg or something, Liechtenstein.
That's right.
I can understand that. Because
the Vatican.
That's right, the Vatican, right. You're not going more than 100 feet, so that's okay. But Australia? I mean, when you see these trucks going across the outback, it's just huge diesel trucks.
Yeah. Well, it's just more pie in the sky, like you said.
Oh my God, it's hysterical.
So
speaking of countries that have fun, and I think I might have mentioned this last time, an Israeli spacecraft.
Oh yeah.
Did we talk about?
No.
Okay, an Israeli spacecraft crashed on the moon just moments before touchdown. It was deet, 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 and apparently just before touchdown, they lost contact, failing in an ambitious attempt to make history as the first privately funded lunar landing. Now, what's interesting, it's a Israeli non-profit group.
It's our science update music.
Okay, the spacecraft lost communications with ground control. During its final descent, moments later, the mission was declared as failure. However, it was declared a success. Also, Doane, this guy over there, nonetheless called the mission an amazing success for reaching the moon and coming so close to landing successfully.
Well, they came close.
Yeah, no, they did. That's right. Well, horseshoes and hand grenades. I mean, I don't know. That's when close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. By far, the smallest, cheapest spacecraft ever to get to the moon is the size of a washing machine. Okay, fine, but I just think that, and they got the $1 million. There was some kind of a prize. So for something as the mission control declared it a failure, but they got paid, and this other guy comes out and called it an amazing success. So okay.
Right. Well, I would say it's an amazing success. I mean, it's been I think decades since anybody's gone to the moon.
No, it's, and they're the latest one. I mean, that's right. It's the first private one.
Okay.
Also.
And also, if you think about it, I mean, the major application for, they could certainly impact a missile somewhere if they needed to.
Yeah.
With that type of
That's true.
success.
That's true. Yeah.
So
that's
you
the
don't
thing.
need a controlled descent on your ICBM, I don't think.
Well, curiously enough, are there any orbiters around the moon that can take pictures? I wonder. We have them around Mars, but I don't know if we have them around.
Not that I know of. Eric?
Right, Eric, right. But I mean, what I'm saying is it'd be interesting to see how close the crash site is to what they projected the landing site was going to be.
Right, yeah, that's true.
As Ron White said one time when the plane, he says, well, we'll be the first ones to the crash site.
Mm-hmm. With one engine down, how far does this plane go?
All the way to the crash site. So anyway, okay, the U.S. House Democrats, this is kind of a tale on something else we talked about.
Okay.
The U.S. House Democrats blame Trump for worsening border crisis, of course.
Okay.
Everybody's calling for bipartisan solutions and bipartisan toughening the U.S. asylum law.
We just solved that with the...
I know, that's what I'm saying. This came later in the thing. I don't have to talk about that because you can blame them all you want, but the thing is Trump solved it, okay? Solved, done, and I don't even have to read that.
Here are your people.
Now, this is interesting. Warren, now this is the Warren, what's her name, running for president, Elizabeth. She says on Amazon's $0 tax bill. Now, interestingly enough, since Amazon was founded in '96, and since then they've paid hundreds of millions, or millions at least, if not hundreds of millions, in taxes. Now, this last year, they paid zero. She's all upset about that.
Well, look.
It's legal.
Yeah, let's be clear. They didn't pay zero taxes. First of all, every employee paid...
225,000 employees, they all
paid taxes.
Right. And they would not have been...
paid taxes.
Right.
I mean, Bezos himself has probably paid $50 billion personally.
Well, 50 million.
No, billion. If you think about it, he's worth billions and billions and has been for 20 years now. If they take...
Okay.
I mean, they take 40% of what I make, 40, 60% when it comes down to it. So if he's made...
You're right. You mean not Amazon's, but his personal tax bill.
Yeah, his personal
substantial.
tax.
Oh, no question. And of course, this, to me, shows the flaw in having corporate taxation anyway. I think corporate taxes, that all that is, corporate taxes are only a tax.
It's just another way to disguise it.
I know. That's a tax on people who buy stuff.
They're all taxes on people.
Right. You're right. Exactly. So, but they think it's by calling it corporate tax. But now, the other thing to remember...
They didn't pay anywhere close to zero. They paid huge amounts. Now, and then not only that, but... however they got to that number zero, guarantee you, like you said, it was legally by citing deductions and other things, investments that they've made.
Right. I mean, you get to deduct investments as cost.
Line item accountable investment, line item things you can actually deduct straight off of the taxes.
And investments are a big part of it.
Right. But what, she wants to keep them out of New York now?
No. You're right. We know. Guess what? Surprise. What she wants to do is to have a 7% surtax on corporate profits above $100 million. Now, I will tell you this much. This shades back to years and years ago, on two or three separate occasions. General Electric in the 60s or something didn't pay any. So that's when they had a minimum tax at that point.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you remember this, but to be honest with you, I don't know if it's still in effect. But years ago, they started this thing called the alternate minimum tax. Alternate minimum tax, AMT. So once you configured your taxes normally, legally, now you had to go back and say, wait a minute. Do I pay more than that?
Right,
according to the AMT. And to me, it's amazing that they want to. There's never enough money, but what they want to do now is tax success. I mean, the fact is
that's the only thing left.
Yeah, that's right. It's the only thing left.
Well, actually, that's not true. They can still go after all of us for all kinds of stuff.
Well,
and they will. They will if they get in office.
She chided the company because they paid no federal taxes on profits of $11 billion, and so what she said was they're talking about a $1 trillion infrastructure thing, and Amazon would pay almost $700 million in taxes instead of paying zero. Well, $700 million, I got a news flash for you, ain't much. I mean, it's
0.7.
It's a rounding error, So. And their figures there. And the U.S. Democrats seek up to $2 trillion to invest in aging infrastructure. And of course, the infrastructure includes bridges, roads, and schools. Of course,
for the kids.
That's another. Yeah, it's for the children. But I thought it was interesting that there are 47,000 or 470,000. I don't know. There was an article earlier this week about the number of bridges that are seriously deficient. And of course, this brings up something that I've talked about many times, and that is governments know how to spend money. They don't know how to make. They have no idea what maintenance is all about. And so, how do you get 47,000 bridges that suddenly require major maintenance? Because
and since we're talking about expenses, is that all you got on them?
Yep.
Did you see? And this goes into a couple of different stories, but did you saw what happened at Georgetown University?
Oh my God! Yes, I did. I did have that. I did have that.
All right. Well, to me, this is one of those examples of creating an expense that you can't possibly fulfill.
Now this was a non-binding resolution. So
right. Now this is kids.
Kids, right.
Kids got together and raised their virtue flag as high as the pole would go.
Well, $27.50.
Well, as high as the pole would go. And I guarantee you that every one of these kids has this on their resume right now. They're typing it up right now.
Go back and tell what it was all about. This is for reparations.
Okay, right. So Georgetown University has a record of having sold 234 slaves at some point to shore up their finances.
In the 1830s.
Right. So these kids, benevolent cherubs that they are, have decided to make amends for the injustices of the past and compel their fellow students and themselves. They don't want to pay the money back themselves, just themselves, or they could just do that.
Right.
So what they want to do is force everybody into a compact by voting.
Well, not only that, when you look at who voted, it was interesting because the turnout was like under 60%. And it was only about it was only about 60% of those people that wanted to. So you know what we're talking about is 36% of the students were the ones.
It's a mob rule type of situation.
Right. And so there was 70% or 65% or something of the students that either didn't vote or were against it.
Right. Well, and so so it's non-binding.
It's non-binding.
So that cuts
and of course you know who they wanted to give the money to.
Well, descendants of the 234.
They found some descendants in some backwater country in Louisiana.
Right.
And they said, okay, that's where the money's going to go.
Right. Right.
Okay. Never mind. I think they found at least one of the people that had graduated summa cum laude from something as an attorney, and the wife and everybody, but that was part of the deal, was now worth tons. And so not that person does not get reparations.
Why not? I don't understand.
Again, we talk about that. Yeah.
It's more insanity. I want to go over just a little bit more. Christopher Hitchens, I just watched a thing from him from 2000, back when he was alive.
R.I.P.
And he did a speech about reparations.
Oh, did he?
Yes. And he talked about in the speech him writing a book about Britain returning an artifact to, I think, Egypt, where they had taken a chunk of a wall or something and brought
Napoleon,
it back.
yeah.
And so
no, that would have been French. Okay,
they were going to return. Or maybe it was. I can't remember. Anyway, it was a specific artifact that was clearly linked to a specific location. I mean, there's the rest of the stuff right there.
Okay.
You can shove it back in there and it fits right there.
Okay.
That's entirely different from reparations, which he went on to say was a good thing. And his argument was that the money that was created off the backs of the slaves is today in the United States Treasury and needs to be dispersed to those people.
The United States Treasury doesn't have any money.
That's what I said.
What?
Negative $22 million.
You want a piece of that?
That's it. Because if you want a piece of that, we'll be happy to dole it out to you. But you know what? All the money that was in the Treasury was already spent on benevolent causes like
right.
that.
That's right.
So the question that I'd have for Christopher at this point is, how much into debt do you want current Americans go to make up for past
I think
generations?
the current number is something around $60,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. Is
right.
Your debt is what you owe.
That's what you owe now.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, how much further into debt should we go to make up for centuries past?
Well, there was one fellow who was, and I saw an interview with this one fellow, and he said it was like 1.7 trillion. As far as he did net present value from all the wages for all the people.
Oh, okay.
And he said today that's 1.7.
And that'll do it.
That'll do it, right?
Right. And then there's no more to pay.
Well, and of course
until the next group
when
says, hey, wait a minute.
I don't know if this was Joe Rogan or it was somebody. It was on YouTube or something like that, someplace, and he was all for it. No, I'm sorry. It might have been West Wing.
Well, look.
Okay, so it's true.
Yeah, right. Look, the bottom line is English common law, at least, has recognized for centuries that you do not answer for the transgressions of your ancestors.
That's Lord. That's the Bible.
Okay, there you go. Exactly. It's okay. It could come from Roman law. It could be millennial old. Exactly. If your grandfather takes out a loan and doesn't pay it back, the grandkid doesn't held liable.
No.
If there's a mass murderer who has kids, the kids don't have to make amends to the people that were
They
murdered.
go to jail.
Right, exactly.
They get electrocuted.
This is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's the basis, the logic behind reparations is exactly that. We're all going to start making restitutions, just start going backwards. And depending on how good your records are, that's how many people you can pay back. It's just insanity. It's literally insanity. For thinking adults to contemplate returning to the sins of our ancestors to make amends is...
Again, this is an emotional plea.
Yeah.
It's you know, I've got tears driving down.
No basis in thought.
No.
If these kids want to be good, they can pony up their own money and go pay those people and pat themselves on the back for it.
Right.
And they will have done a good deed.
Again.
But what's interesting is it's going to create an expectation in those people going forward now. When do you stop paying them? I mean, what do you have?
Never.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you have an accountant come in and say, "Well, okay, we've tallied up the value of the family that we sold for you"? I mean, maybe, but it's just, to me, this is an adventure into the absolutely absurd that I hope stops quickly.
Now, speaking, people are always screaming bloody murder about the wealth indiscrepancy in this United States. Mm-hmm. The wealthiest 3% of Russians own 89% of all financial assets in 2018. Now, I'm not sure. They apparently had some. They think they found a way to calculate that, according to joint research by Higher School of Economics and the state-run VEB Bank. Okay, first time a comprehensive study. Fewer than 100 Russian billionaires' combined wealth exceeds the entire population's bank savings. So, you know, you talk about inequality in this country, nothing compared to those guys.
It's. I think you could document that inequality is worse in monarchical or dictatorial countries.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at the unbelievable, nice, clean Democratic Republic of Congo or someplace, you know, and it's, you know, the top 100 people own everything.
Right.
So, you know, that's...
Well, and people, when they talk about the state of the discrepancy in wealth today in the United States, I would point to the socialism that's come into play. That is to say, it's because we've been able, the people at the top have been able to use the laws in their favor to swing the wealth back. They never would have had the kind of bailouts and the kind of government money.
Oh, that's, I mean, you know, when you think about it, the bailouts to the bankers of, you know, $2 to $3 trillion over 5 years.
Amazing.
What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I mean, that's insanity.
We
saved the system. No, you know you didn't. Number one, well, you impoverished, you know, 150 million people to do this.
At the turn of the century, the debt was like what, 6 trillion or something, and now it's 22.
Yeah, right.
In 20 years.
Yep. So moving along, let's see, I can skip over that, I think. Okay, the monkeys this is in China again.
Okay.
Monkeys were injected with human brain genes, and, and it made them smarter. Mm-hmm. What could go wrong here?
What could
possibly go wrong? Scientists in southern China report after creating several transgenic macaque monkeys which contained extra copies of a human gene linked to brain development, the monkeys did better on a memory test, exhibited better short-term memory, and had faster reaction time. Has anybody ever shown them the movie Planet of the Apes?
Jurassic Park or Planet of the Apes?
I mean, seriously, send it over there. Charlton has to die.
Is great. Personally, I think this is awesome. Personally, I have a screenplay in the works whereby we figured out how to give all sorts of animals intelligence, and we've got birds and octopi and
They're already
tortoise.
smart.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean really, really, like you can talk to them and stuff. That would be great, and I think we could come up with that this century. We could have, before the turn of the century, you could have all sorts of creatures walking around.
Be careful what you wish
well,
for.
look, it'll change everything, but
I'm not going to be here, which is a good thing.
well, you never know.
Well, what, everybody's going to be Dr. Doolittle?
Well, no, but
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean no?
Even
But
more
yeah.
than that. What I'm thinking of is combination creatures. You grow a man with a dog head, something like that. They're going to do that.
Wait a minute. Okay, I just noticed that our readers,
Listeners,
people, because you crazy person, you're crazy man.
Look,
I don't know what you're talking
this
about.
stuff's going to happen. This technology is not beyond us at this point. Yeah, people, we expand in all directions.
It's alive.
That's what we will do it because it'll be useful. Because just for the sake of growing, like they'll grow. They'll grow bodies just to use the organs and stuff like that, right? Well, what? You have to grow. You'll grow a body with no head and that kind of stuff. And then they'll say, "Well, we'll put a little head on there or something,"
Oh my God!
It'll be interesting to see. But
okay, well, you can chat about this.
and here's the great thing: what they may do is, in just a couple of years, they may find an age reversing thing for you, so that then you have to live through all that.
Well, it could be worse.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's the EU wants to do retaliatory tariffs. Georgetown students, we did that. Okay, we did that. And of course, the Game of Thrones. Okay, something that the Jimmy Doane Show talked before we got onto this stuff here years ago was CubeSats.
Right.
And what we wanted to do was to send up, we were going to send up this is 15 years ago we had this idea. We were going to send up a small satellite, in low Earth orbit that would go around and because what we wanted to do was to play the Rolling Stones. Mm-hmm. And, have on a continuous loop or something. And, of course, you could try and get me for copyright violation, but, go get it, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned. But it would come over and, when the Jimmy Doane satellite was coming over, not to be outdone, of course, Pepsi mm-hmm. plans to project a giant ad mm-hmm. in the night sky using CubeSats.
Yes.
Orbital Billboard, a Russian company called Start Rocket, says it's going to launch a cluster of CubeSats into space that will act as an orbital billboard, projecting enormous advertisements onto the night sky like artificial constellations. And its first client, it says, will be PepsiCo, which will use the system to promote a campaign against stereotype, whatever the hell that means. But I just think that, what it reminds me of course, when you see the dystopian movies like Blade Runner, mm-hmm. and you see the ads, all over, right. flying over and everything like this, and then here we are going to be no getting away from it as the Pepsi ad goes across this.
I don't know. You would have to have an enormous size thing to make up something that would be visible to the human eye.
Well, it is interesting you mentioned that because the space station
right.
is barely visible to the naked eye when it comes over,
right.
and it's huge.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. And it looks like a dot.
Right.
So, okay.
And the only reason it's there is because it's moving.
Right. And so, okay, I could imagine you putting something up there that was space station sized, but more reflective, like with little sort of like a spider with legs that went out with reflectors on the tips of the
more space junk.
Something. Well, for sure. But it's hard to. You'd have to look at it like with a telescope, I would think, to see the ad. It's hard to imagine they could put something out there that big, but. From my perspective, that seems like a violation because I know, and for me, but I can't. It's almost as though
screw you. I'm telling you.
What if they put something up like we'll put up a second sun at night so it never gets dark or something weird like that.
Okay, well, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I know that's ridiculously. I'm waiting to see what happens, but to me, this brings up another technology that we started to mention, which is China is developing a ground-based satellite weapon, which, if we need to, we can knock this Pepsi thing right out of the sky.
Okay.
So,
What is this, like a photon gun?
Yeah, it's like it's like the
what was it? That was in Star Wars.
The ion cannon.
The ion cannon. That's what I meant. Yeah, the ion cannon.
Yeah, they're actually doing one. We talked about it hypothetically a few shows ago. The next day, I saw a story that China is in fact developing ground-based microwave type of pinpointed attack where they can damage. Now they fired it up there, and they didn't damage our satellites, but we detected it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a matter of power at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, because one of the things that I don't know how fast you could react, but you certainly want to have a mirror on there so you can reflect it back down to them.
Well, that's not going to get you.
I know. Okay, and now speaking of technology, is the last thing I've got on technology. Presidential hopeful Andrew Yang plans to campaign via hologram.
And I saw this. Fantastic.
I mean, no, it's great. I mean, we've had Twitter, we've had the social, but now hologram. Do you remember? Do you remember in the original Star Wars where they had the game?
Do I remember?
Yeah. Let the Wookiee win.
Well, and the Princess Leia thing too. The Princess
Right,
Leia.
exactly. Yeah.
Look, that's how you do. And then, of course, in the later ones, they had the full-on conference between Darth and the people. And one of the guys like fades out as his ship.
Right. Yep, that's right. And yeah.
So this is fantastic. This is the way I would do it. I would not travel around, man. I would have. And, you know, did you see what Modi did over in India? I think we might have talked about it.
I don't remember.
When Modi was getting elected in India for their last big election, what he did was he hired a bunch of lookalikes. And he sent the lookalikes out in like caravans.
Okay.
And then they would like play a speech by him, and the lookalike would stand there and kind of wave or something. And it was like, oh look, there he is. But we know it's not him, but it's him.
No, that's right. No.
And so this is kind of that was a low tech version of this.
No, I mean that's fabulous because you know until fairly recently, like in the last, I'm trying to think, when I don't believe that anybody traveled around.
I'm telling you, this is brilliant. This is the way I would do it. I'll film myself right here doing my campaign speeches, and then you just.
There you go.
Project them,
and it be,
simultaneous.
Wait a minute. It gets even better. Wait a minute. I'm thinking here. His ideas keep coming in like this. You remember the Pokemon business where you would on your phone and you could go around and find him? Well, there you've got you.
Yeah. Where's Yang today?
Yeah, right. Where's Yang today? And you go, and here he is. On your front lawn.
On your front lawn.
And he's campaigning. But I mean, no matter where you go, he pops up. He's in the grocery store.
That's of course you can only get the 3D version where they have the projectors, but you can get him on your phone anywhere, like you said.
It looked kind of 3D-ish when you played that game, on when you.
Well, yeah, but they're talking about a real 3D hologram.
No, I know that, but I'm saying, as you build up to that, you could have a Yang game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And anytime you could go around and find him someplace, and wherever he was, he would give you that particular speech.
Right. Exactly. About that
thing. Right. Yeah. And you found in your.
No, I think it's a brilliant move. So
anyway, but I mean, it's interesting the thing about, like as you say. Because until recently, in geologic times, you campaigned from your front porch. I mean, all the presidential people, they never went around.
Well, they did the train stop tours.
Well, that was only late. I mean, he had to have trains.
Right.
I mean, Lincoln didn't campaign on trains. He happened to travel by train to get to the White House. But prior to that, and then even after that, I don't think anybody moved around the country campaigning until probably. I mean, I'm just trying to.
Well, I mean, up to Harding did it, and
he did.
Yeah, that's what killed him. Actually, was traveling too much.
Okay.
And
all right. Well, I take it back then, because I thought. I mean, I know that the whistle stop was a big deal, and you'd pull into this station and give it from the back of your train and everything. But prior to the train, I guess nobody campaigned that way.
No, well, you couldn't do too much. I would imagine you would publish things in newspapers and send letters and letters and representatives. Of course, you realize now the telegram didn't even show up until the telegraph didn't even show up until the 1830s or 40s. Right.
And that's when you could finally, get a newspaper article across the country. But up to that point, nothing.
No, before that, it was hand a letter to the horseman.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the hologram's coming.
Yeah, I like it.
Now, what you can do is you can put your own hologram up there that looks like a dinosaur and eat him.
Oops. So, well, one other thing as we close here, did you see the? Well, we'll talk about it next time, maybe. The second Mao Cultural Revolution.
No.
It's weird stuff potentially going on in China, but maybe we'll check it out. Thanks for joining us. Oh, Gene had some great stuff here to see. Well, thanks, Gene.
What?
Other people can see. He made some comments here.
Okay.
And Robert, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Hope you guys had a little fun. So we'll be back on Sunday, of course. And
actually, we're going to be back on Wednesday.
I knew that. And on Sunday.
Yeah,
right after that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
This music brought to you by Kevin MacLeod. We thank Kevin. Here's our copyrights. Don't block us. And I am Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. And we thank you very much. See ya.